or lunchtime, people that could take advantage of that. Also, I want to make sure you know that this one today, we are recording. It will go onto our website as well. And so you can, if you find that this is of interest to others that you think they may want to watch, you can definitely tell them, go to the website, look under the levy, and there'll be this recorded version of our forum today. Our forum today is really about information. It's about getting information to people so that when they decide, hello, sir, come on in. Totally up to you, wherever you're comfortable. Wherever you're comfortable at. So today, our goal is for when you leave today that you know more about the levy than you did when you walked in. And that you have developed kind of a connection point for not only your questions that you may have that aren't answered here, and then for you to be able, if people ask you, that you can at least say where to go to get the information. We're going to go through, I don't know, what are there, 15 slides or so of information. That does not mean by any regards that if questions that you have with regards to the slides, don't hesitate to jump right in and ask those questions or wait to the very end. We want you again leave here with getting your questions answered in regards to the levy. We'll do some quick introductions. Chris, I'll let you start.
Chris Scocco, and I'm the Associate Superintendent for District Operations.
And I'm Kevin McKay. I am the Superintendent of Schools.
And I'm Stephanie Henry. I'm the Director of Financial Services.
Thank you, Walt, for joining us today. Dwayne. Eric. All right, well, thank you all for joining. A lot of the information we're going to share with you today, like we've said, is available on the website. There's a levy icon. Just go on and hit that. And then most of the information you have will be ones that we're going to refer to as well. So with that being said, we're going to kick off. Again, it's very informal. Help yourself if you want during the course of the presentation to grab coffee, some water, some pastries if you'd like. If you see things on the slides, don't hesitate to jump right in and ask questions about each of them. So, go ahead, Chris.
Just one quick thing, the education report, you may have already received this in your mailboxes. So hopefully after today, talking about a few of these slides, you'll be able to go through the ed report and say, I know that, I've already learned about that at the forum. So just making sure that you have that piece of information as well. So we'll go ahead and dive in and talk about the learning levy. The learning levy, really some key talking points for the levy. It's basically levies are for learning. And I'll get to a slide here in a minute that talks about the difference between levies and bonds. But levies are for learning, and everything in our levy supports CELA students. That's just a key piece that we focus in on for levy funding and make sure that everything that's funded in the levy supports our students. Secondly, the 2021 levy was for collection in 22 and 23 and is set to expire the end of December of 2023. So this is the time when we go back out to voters and ask to renew that funding so that we can continue to receive the funding that we need to support all of the programs and other items that are funded in the levy. As you know, with levies, it requires a simple majority, so 50% plus one to pass. It's not like a bond where you're building a school and supermajority is required at 60%. Levies are a simple majority requirement to pass. The 2023 levy will be for collection in the 24, 25, 26, and 27 calendar years. So this is the first time, this is my 23rd year with the school district. We've always passed 2-year levies. We've had a lot of conversation about escalating costs and just stability and voter fatigue. And there's a lot of things that that have come into this conversation with our school board to make the decision to go out for a 4-year levy. The proposal is to collect at the same projected tax rate all 4 years. It's not an escalation, but it's the same projected tax rate. If the levy fails, so if we have less than 50% votes, yes vote, then the district will not receive levy equalization funding. So That's a really important piece because we receive, if we pass levies, we receive what they call levy equalization funding. And I have a slide that dials in a little bit more about levy equalization funding, but we receive about $2.4 million per year in levy equalization funding. If we pass the levy, if we don't pass the levy, we don't receive the money. So between the levy equalization funding and our levy funding, that makes up 10% of our operating budget. We have a $63 million annual operating budget, and 10% of it comes from local levy funds and levy equalization.
Before you jump in there,
Yep.
Chris, I think it's important that this is the replacement of a levy that's getting ready to expire. That levy is set to expire on the end of 2023. And so districts who run levy have to go back out prior to the levy expiring and go back and take it back to the voters. So this is a replacement. Again, it is not a new levy. It is a replacement of an existing levy that is set to expire at the end of the calendar year 2020. Go ahead, Chris.
The dollar, as far as the total annual budget, it was just under 60 million for our annual operating budget. Actually, it might have been a little bit over with the COVID dollars. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it should be, I think it's just under 60. Yes. So the rate actually fluctuates based on actual assessed value. So what the voters see on their ballot, as you know, is you see dollar amounts for each of the 4 years. You don't approve a rate. And that's, yeah, we're approving a dollar amount. And so what we're projecting, and we've projected in assessed value increases each year. But the good thing is the board has the ability, like we did in 2021, to certify for a lesser amount than what the patrons voted in if we wanted to stay at that same. We say $1.65 for the next 4 years. Then when the assessed value happens, if it escalates way higher than we projected, the rate's going to go down. If it's lower than we projected, the rate's going to go up. And we have the ability to recommend to the school board to certify what they call certify for less and only collect as much money that's going to drive the rate that we promised the voters. And that's what we did in 2021. Okay, so levy equalization funding, just quickly, the levy equalization funding is provided from the state for property poor districts. So they really look at what the tax base is in different areas. And we're not like Bellevue and Seattle and those areas where they can generate a lot more dollars on a lesser amount of tax for the voters because of the size of their tax base. So for property poor, what they call property poor districts, they actually, the state school taxes that we all pay, those actually go to Olympia and then they distribute those dollars back out to property poor districts so that so there's more equity in how much money each district can drive. And so for SELA, like I mentioned, we used to receive just over $3 million a year in levy equalization. Currently, we're receiving 2.4. Yes, we are.
Most school districts within Eastern Washington and most school districts within Southwest Washington and some within Northwest Washington. Once you get outside that I-5 corridor, many of those districts are considered property poor. Ours is based on the significant amount of agricultural land.
Just a few quick facts on the right there. And as Kevin mentioned, we have a lot of levy information on the website. This presentation is out there under that levy icon if you go to it on the website. The first thing is the proposed levy collection rate is $1.65 per thousand. We currently are collecting $1.50 per thousand. Actually, in 2023, we're collecting $1.49 per thousand. So you'll see a 15-cent increase when we went through our process to project costs moving forward. As you know, costs are escalating. We ran all the numbers at $1.50. We looked at what programs we have, what the estimated costs were going to be. And in discussion with the school board, they made the final decision to increase the levy to $1.65. The great thing about this is we had the opportunity to talk to the board about after we refinanced our bonds in March of 2022. As you know, we sent out communication that we saved our taxpayers within our tax base approximately $4.8 million, because in the refinance we dropped our interest rate in half, which is great. The other component of that was building in a little capacity in the bond rate, because at that time we were discussing a possibility of a capital projects levy for a new tech center for the high school. The board ultimately decided to not move forward with that. They wanted to drop that bond rate down, so not use the capacity to run another levy, a capital projects levy. And so therefore, bottom line, the key point on this is, and we'll get to some slides, the total projected rate that we're proposing on this is less than what we're collecting currently. So the tax rate's less than what we're collecting currently. So that's a big point in this. Although the levy's increasing by 15 cents, the bond rate's going down and making it less in total. So the difference between levies and bonds, I think everyone here knows, but we always like to refresh everyone's memory about levies and bonds. So levies are for learning. That's why it's a learning levy. It's all programs that benefit kids. It's not constructing schools. Bonds are building buildings. So the last bond that we passed was in 2018, and we built this new kindergarten campus over here and a new John Campbell Elementary School there. We're not asking for a bond measure to be passed. We're asking for a learning levy, a replacement of the current levy that's expiring, so that we have the ongoing funds to provide those programs, which we'll talk about. This gives you just information about what the levy is. So the key areas that are funded under the Selah School District levy: student learning. About 65% of the programs and items within the levy fall under the student learning umbrella. We have a list of those shortly. Technology is the second one. It's not just devices or computers that are funded by the levy. We have a tech director and 3 techs that work full-time to support the district on all of our tech needs. So that's all. The levy fully funds technology.
Yeah, and also all the devices are funded, the people to manage that, and then all of the infrastructure as well, and then all the yearly subscriptions that are part of that as well are all funded by the levy. And that would be something that you would just assume that's part of basic education. And in our state, that's not correct. We do get money for technology, but the vast amount of that comes out of the levy in order to support not only the devices for students and staff, but also all the people to manage it and then all the infrastructure required to make it operate.
And the last bucket is the athletics and activities. And so many things outside of athletics are funded under the activities umbrella as well, with clubs and other opportunities. This gives you a list of the things funded in the levy under student learning. You can see campus safety and security. Our #1 priority is to make sure students and staff are safe. Our school resource officer that we contract with through the city of Selah is funded by the levy, and also we have campus monitors on both, 2 on the high school campus and 1 on the middle school campus, along with all of the subscriptions and contractual requirements with the ESD to support us with our safety plans and all the things that fall under that umbrella. We also have a director of school safety. Just a very small portion of his contract is funded by the levy as well.
As you look at the numerous of those things that are bulleted under student learning, again, they either represent things that our state does not feel fits within the basic education allocation, or the funding is not sufficient. And so we must add funds to it in order for those to be part of what we provide to students. Nursing services is one prime example. You know, I think all of us would think that a nurse at every school would be in the best interest of our students. A district of our size, 3,700 students, generates 1.9 nurses. And so that's the state funding formula of 1.9. We don't feel that's sufficient. And so locally, we have to make the decision to add to those services for nurses in order to get to a level that better supports our students. Some of those other ones, like if you look at English language support, yeah, there are funds coming from the state to support English language learners, but we add to that in order to meet the needs of our students. Highly capable programs, another one. We don't believe we receive sufficient funding to support all the activities we want to do with regards to highly capable. So in turn, we've got to take the funds that the state provides to us and then add to it with levy dollars in order to make the programs appropriate for our students. Another one, I just like to identify our facilities and the way they're maintained, and the grounds within our facilities are really maintained to a level that I think our community has grown to appreciate and expect. You know, they're for the most part litter free, other than a little bit of time when you go to the high school and look at the parking lot. But for the most part, our facilities are well maintained. The infrastructure is there to support them. Now we do get funds again from the state, but we have to add funds to them to get them to the degree that we think would be appropriate. A lot of the stuff here is either fully funded by the levy, or we jointly fund it with levy funds and then funds that come from the state.
All right, this slide just summarizes the percentage of the levy. So that I mentioned student learning, that's 64% of the levy funds, the athletics and activities, 19%, and technology, 17%. So when you look at the total dollars allocated to each of these segments or buckets, that's the percentage of the total that in those 3 years. This slide basically gives you a good, I guess, view of what the voting history has been in SELA for bonds and levies. So in the gray are the years that we've ran a bond measure, and in the green are the levies. In my 23 years here, we failed the levy twice. One was in February of 2021, most recently, right at the end of COVID. We failed it then, and we also failed our levy back in 2012 when we put it on the ballot with the bond. Otherwise, we have passed. We've had really good support from our community, and I think our community, and you guys can speak to this, I think have appreciated the transparency that we've provided with our financial situation and how we're allocating resources. But this gives you a summary of how what the voting passages look like. And a reminder on the gray bars, those require 60% on the green.
And this goes back to 2006, but in a study of levies in the SELA school district, I believe one of the first levies that was ran was back in the 1970s. And so levies throughout the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and all the way to present have always had tremendous community support. If we were to go back and do the analysis all the way back to the first levy, I think you would see us very strong support from the community over all of those years. What was that? I think obviously taxation has an impact on people. I think the economy, as it goes up and down and up and down, and just what happens to be the levy gets involved in there. I think people in general have, and I'm not just speaking about SELA, I'm speaking about communities in general. There's been other priorities maybe within communities that people have to support. I think levies and bond issues have, if they're tied to public education, not everybody is a supporter of public education, maybe as they once were in the 90s, 2000s. I think there's a variety of reasons. But part of it is definitely the back and forth with the economics of our region or of our state or of our nation. They all play into that. I think also a part of it is that there's voter apathy. There's people who are not participating in the right that they have to make decisions in regards to elections in general. And school-based elections, whether it's a election for a levy or a bond or any of the other times, the number of registered voters that participate compared to the people who actually submit votes is really quite concerning. I think most of us know that. We know of people who are known to be supporters of levies and bonds, and they openly don't say they just decided not to turn their ballot in. And vice versa. People that we know are not in support of whatever measure that's being put in front of them. They don't participate. I think a combination of a lot of things have changed. But it could be one issue for 1 year and another issue for another year. I don't want to place everything on 2021 with regards to the pandemic, but that played a large part across our state and our nation in regards to school-based elections. The amount of support dropped drastically for public school-based elections across our nation in the midst of the pandemic. Sure. Yeah, I'll if the board or representatives of the school board would be right here, they would take this question because they deliberated on that very topic, numerous meetings, knowing full well that the state we are within our economy, and if we kept it at 150, that would deal with that problem, but it would also put the district in a position where we would have to reduce the things that are impactful to kids. So it was this. Do we keep it at 150 and reduce? Or do we bump it up and keep status quo for opportunities for kids? The board ultimately, after multiple meetings of having that discussion, decided that we want to continue to have the opportunities for our students and to support what we have, what we think our community supports because it's been part of previous levies. The levy here is not, the increase in the levy is not because of new things. We don't have anything that's significantly new that's going into this levy. The 15 cents is there to support what we already have in place. So if we wanted to stay at 150, we would have to reduce to things that have already been determined to be important parts of a child's education. Now, if we were at a bond issue, and we had the opportunity to reduce the scope of the project or reduce the type of the project, you know, if we were running one of those, that would definitely, I think, be something that the board would have a conversation about. But each of those items that are identified as being funded by the levy, I don't think the board and or my recommendation is which ones do you quit? You can't reduce the level of safety. We really can't reduce the level of technology. We don't want to reduce the level of opportunities for our students to participate, clubs, activities, athletics, organizations. Where is it that we would make a reduction that we would feel comfortable with? And the voters will, again, make their decision. If the voters feel like the economics of it and the cost that it's going to impact their individual households is one that they can't support, they're going to vote no. And then that message is very strong back to the school district in that the board's going to have to go back. The public has spoken. Now, where do we go from there? Because they're basically saying at 165, we can't support that by our pocketbooks. Yeah, from our perception as a community member, you do need to go back and start to reduce or eliminate programs. And we're cognizant of that. I mean, that's a real possibility with regards to levies and bonds in this, environment that we hope not, but we are definitely prepared for the community to say, no, we don't support that. Long way to get around what we talked about, but yeah, the board and myself, Chris, Stephanie are all very cognizant of that increase in times where everybody is trying to find ways to decrease.
Okay, as we move through to the next slide here, this gives you, if you look at 2018, you'll see in the green, we were collecting at 5.7 million on our levy. In 2019, the legislature capped all levies to $1.50. And so we went back and we did just what you talked about. We had to cut a lot of different things, and it was a tough task, but we cut it down to $1.50 and to drive the amount for $1.50, and then you can see they're moving forward. But the point is that I want to make on this is a lot of districts, now that they've raised the ceiling for levies to $2.50, a lot of districts have inched up to that, close to that $2.50, where CELA has been really, I believe, we've been fiscally responsible to maintain a rate that's right around that initial cap that they gave us in 2019. Okay, so as I mentioned, one of the key points here is that the total projected tax rate that we're looking at moving forward is less than what taxpayers are paying now. So this is one chart. This shows the tax history, both bonds and levies. Levies in the yellow, bonds in the blue, and then the green line showing the total rate and how it's basically declined since 2018. Like I mentioned, down to 392 total in 19, all the way down to in 2023 at 322. So the projection moving forward for the next 4 years is at 305 in total for bonds and levies, and which is 17 cents less than what we're currently collecting. We will be collecting in 2020. So it's an important point with this slide to show that we are looking at a decline.
And that the board and Chris and I and Stephanie, when we all talked about what I just spoke about, this played into it. We had the opportunity in the combined to show a reduced taxation rate, knowing that we were going to have, we were in the discussions of bumping the levy 15 cents. So all that played into the ultimate decision by the board to agree on a rate of 165.
Refinance. That was the big thing in March of 2020. So once they were refinanced, and they saved, obviously. This next slide just shows the same information using another type of bar chart. So you can see in 2018 on the far left in blue, all the way, and that's in a $200,000 home. Far left is all blue, and then the far right in the green, light green is 2027. So you can see there, $300,000 home in the middle and $400,000 home on the far right. Okay, so with when we look at our 2023, and this is hot off the press because they just posted the tax booklets on the Yakima assessor site today. So we quickly updated this slide. So when you look at the 2023 rates, we're the 4th lowest for levy in the valley. So we're in the yellow for 2023 at $1.49, which we want to be at $1.50. So the assessed value increased a little bit more than we thought. And So the rate went down a little bit further, but we're at $1.49 in 2023 because anything less than $1.50, you lose a pro rata share of your levy equalization. So there'll be a minor difference on this. So then looking up the chart here, at the very top, you have Natchez at 240 per thousand. And Yakima's right below them at 207 and down the line. Zilla, East Valley's at $1.80, all the way down to Mount Adams is just above us at $1.53. We're at $1.49, and there's 3 districts below us. We have West Valley at $1.47, Mapton $1.46, and Union Gap $1.42.
Now we don't, each school district is different. It's different by all kinds of different variables. The financial they get, their bonds, their levies, the number of students they serve, all those things are different. But our purpose was not to say we're better than others or we're worse than others, because we get into that anyway within our valley of who has a better school district, who has a better school. It's somewhat competitive. What it was meant to show is that we have, as a school district, legislative capacity to go to the voters and ask for 250. Okay, that's the authority that we have to go to the voters for. But that's not even in our thinking. Going to 250 or going anywhere to that area, we know that that's not fiscally responsible, and that we know that that's not the ask that we want to ask of our community. We want to fund the things that have been continued to fund, and not go out and ask for a significant more money to fund something we don't even need or want. So being at 149 here currently in 2023, I think shows that the district has taken under consideration the community needs and the community wants, and then been fiscally pretty conservative in what they've gone out and asked the community with regards to the levy. And again, this only is the levy.
So this next slide is the levy and the bond together. And you can see here in yellow, we would be in 2023, we're at $3.23. You'll see us highlighted with yellow around the bar there. So we're right in the middle of the pack for 2023. Total rate 323. So that gives you an idea of where we fall with other districts there. And again, I agree with Kevin. I mean, really, we want to show the community that we're driven to be fiscally responsible, and we're not trying to ask for more than we need. So right in the middle there is Sealy School District with bonds and levy rates combined. And the orange is capital projects levies, in case you're wondering. So these include all measures that are out there with school districts. Oops, sorry.
Yeah. No. Each district is different. For example, the Mapton School District has a levy, but they don't have any bonds. And actually, they've gone to their voters and are going to go back to their voters on this election and ask for support of a bond. They've not been able to get the approval for years, or have decided not to run a bond. So their taxation is only on a levy. I believe they have a little bit of a bond still to pay.
Yeah,
or it's very small.
Union Gap went out for a bond this last time and didn't pass. That's just the residual of what they currently have.
Mount Adams is a different school district because it resides within the boundaries of the Yakima Nation on reservation land. They were able to build a new facility, but not through a bond. They took out other loans in order to build that facility and got some actual support from the state in order to make the facility built there. But as you can see, everybody else has some type of a bond there that they're working through. Us being in the middle, I mean, that's a nice place to be, but even more important, what it shows is that you're pretty diversified in the two taxes that you have. They're somewhat close, but the visual part of that and the best part of it for our students is the facilities that they go to school in. I mean, when we look at our facilities with the middle school, with now JCP, with Lentz, those are incredible facilities at the very high level of educational facilities. And even our high school at the year of old it is, what, 30 plus years? Okay, and CIS, those are still very functional facilities at this time. So to have the rate for the bond and the levy and the total tax package, to be able to offer what we offer kids for the learning, plus to have the type of facilities we have in the community, and then still be at the middle ground of taxation purposes is what I think very attractive for people and, you know, for us as educators as well. Yeah, great question. We have no, we have legal limits actually of what we can go out and ask for. We have what's called capacity. We can't go above a certain capacity. The reason why the high school, I think, is getting some attention is because of the amount of students that are going to the high school. We're running into space issues, maybe more so than actual facility issues. Some of the largest classes in the district are all congregating now in the high school. We're going to graduate about 240 students, and we're going to bring in about 290 students. We're going to add another 50 to already a high school that was built for, I think, what, 800 and 850, something like that. So I'm not sure it's more of a facility issue, other than the parking issue that takes, the congestion that's there. But the actual facility is, it's over 30 years old. So at a 30-year limit, it does start to qualify for some state match funding, which is why people seem to think when it gets to a 30-year-old and you have capacity issues, you may want to start considering. So that we're well aware of people talking about going for a bond issue to build a new high school. New high schools, if we're going to build a full brand new high school, we do not have the debt capacity. We don't have even close to the debt capacity to be able to go out and ask for a brand new high school. We also know that that amount right now that the patrons are paying for bond issues is pretty darn high. And to add more to that, it would be probably a very tough ask. So internally in the district, we don't have any vision of when that may be. It's not a short-term vision. I know the board feels very similar about that. They don't have a vision to, you know, pop a bond out in 4 years or anything like that, especially a significant one like to redo the high school or CIS or both. So there's no talk of that. I will tell you that there is, if any talk, it's talk about things that came to the district years ago of interest in a technology facility. But even that, we're now learning the costs associated with that. And it's, again, it would be hard to take that to the voters and ask for their support and get 60% support when you're going to see a pretty significant impact on taxation. That help? What we're seeing now, and I don't know exactly the numbers, but we're seeing classes that have like numbers. So the freshman class is at the same level as the 10th graders. And when you combine all of them, they have a capacity. Now, if we look down all the way down into our kindergarten, first grade, second grade, looks very different from enrollment size. Those are 250, 260-ish. Yeah. More
So with all of that said, we are planning to pull our facilities committee together this spring to update our long-range facilities plan. But again, we haven't had conversations about going out for a bond anytime soon, but it's a good idea to make sure that we have a long-range plan current.
Cohort wise, you mean like if you take one cohort and they go all the way through? Like, yeah. No, we have ours are based on cohorts. The number of kids that start in high school is followed all the way through. And that gives you, at the end, all the kids that went all the way through. Now, some obviously left and went to other locations or so forth. But if they started and we'd have to track them through 4 years, if they drop out and don't go to enroll in another school, they're ours. And we have to keep them. And so even with that, we are at the high 80s or low 90s, depending on the year, of on-time 4-year graduation. And then we have what's called 5th year graduation right now. For those students who, for whatever reason, weren't able to make graduation within 4 years, we now are required to submit the data on 5-year graduation rate. And then that bumps that total graduation rate up a few more percentage points most of the time. We have students that may not make it at the graduation date, but then they complete their coursework and earn a diploma during the summer. And so those are all considered to be, part of that 4-year or 5-year.
Robert but and then that capacity lower to grade level, taking the freshmen back down. Yeah. Wherever he talks on.
All of that was part of conversation when they were seeing our prior superintendent back when he was more involved in those conversations. One of the considerations, though, that they talked about when we talked about money was it was going to cost a lot more money to have. Yeah, definitely, because this is a lot smaller campus. But yeah, those conversations came into play. As you know, we used to have 2 K-4 elementary schools here. When I came in 2000, we had 2 K-4. But the decision was made that this is what was best for kids, to have this campus being an early learning campus. So we have our preschool right behind us in this building, and have this be all early learning and focus that way, and then have one.
I don't get to use it very often, but that was before my time. That's running out. Let me tell you. that It is.
Capacity. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
both buildings were built with capacity. Middle school, it was built with capacity as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so to summarize, and just for the purpose of the video, just make sure everybody understands we are talking about a learning levy and not a bond. We got a little sidetracked, which is fine, but want to make sure that the listeners know we're talking about a learning levy. So the summary proposal here is a 4-year levy duration. Election date is February 14th, 2023. Ballots will be in mailboxes by the end of this week. And the proposed levy rate is $1.65 per thousand. And a reminder that the proposed total rate with bonds and levies combined will be, the proposed rate is less than what we're currently collecting. Just the timeline, we're really past a lot of the preliminary discussions with the board and the administration. A lot of thought and really a lot of thought has gone into this, a lot of different calculations, looking at different options. And the board ultimately made the approval to put this proposal before voters on February 3rd or February 14th. So levy, I think the levy certifies on February 24th. All right, to answer Mr. Iverson, Kevin, to answer your question, last year's total expenditure budget was just under 58 million. Ask that question. And remember, COVID relief funds are in play here. The district received a total of just over $8 million total in COVID relief funds, which we have just under $2 million going into the 22-23 school year, and we'll finish up in 23-24. So that federal money is going to drop off the map. We, like every school district, we all received COVID dollars to help with learning loss for kids and a lot of other PPE and just to make it through the pandemic. Increase in the total budget. Yes, well, what they call IPD, that's like the old COLA days. So that is definitely a piece of it. One thing to remember, the state doesn't fully fund any increase that the legislature authorizes. They pass through, say, okay, this is going to be the amount of IPD we're going to pass through in the salary allocation model, but the cost of it is much more. For example, our teachers, the average teacher pay is $8,000 higher than what we get from the state. So it's just an example. There's a big gap between what we're funded for and what it actually costs us. The other key part of it is our categorical programs, all of our federal programs and such, they don't come with those increases like basic education. Typically, federal funds stay pretty much constant. They don't increase much at all.
But
So,
you are,
yeah.
you are correct. 84%,
84%.
84% of our budget is tied up in salary and benefits of all of our employees. So over the last number of years, the state legislature for the funds, for the staff that the state funds through all the different programs, last year, 5.5% increase. So that 5.5% increase comes to the school district compared to the year before. So you're going to see a larger budget because we're receiving more funds to pay our employees more. If you were to do some type of analysis on that, you would see a pretty steep increase. And the scary thing for us is that we're hearing that's happening at the state level again. Now, for employee benefit, compensation and benefit, that's a good part, but there also comes with some strings attached because we have a lot of employees that are not funded by the state. So we have responsibilities to fund them as well. Anything else? If, Chris and I don't, Stephanie don't mind about anything that has to do with the bond or the levy or any other things. Be happy to take some time and answer for you. Go ahead.
Guys, we're asking $1 but then to say that you guys don't have the budget. Why are they not? Why are these essential?
Good question. Dollars that come from resources outside of the local. Okay, so we receive money from state, from federal, and from local. The local resources are those resources that we, as a school district, get to determine where they're going to be used for. Okay, those local dollars are those levy dollars. So whatever is important in SELA and whatever has been decided over the years that is in the best benefit for our students, those are funded with those dollars. The state resources and the federal resources are earmarked for specific things. So we get money from, let's just use special education. We get resources from the state and from the federal government that are earmarked for special education. They can't be used on anything else other than for special education. You get money for transitional bilingual or English language learners. Those monies can't be used for anything else. Basic education money can't be used to support those things that the state doesn't deem to be part of basic education. Now and I'm with you, I agree that activities, athletics, clubs, organizations are as important to an overall student's education, but our state doesn't see it that way. So we would love to keep those. The problem that we have is we don't get a funding source other than from the local dollars to keep them. Now, if it fails the first time, it would be ultimately the board's decision to go back out to the community a second time, similar to what was done the last time the levy was presented to the community. The board also at that time has it's kind of like a reset. They can put the same proposal back to the voters, or they can adjust the proposal. Go back to $1.50, $1.55, or whatever they think would be in the best interest of the district to give it the best opportunity for passage. If it doesn't pass the second time, legally, the district cannot put that back to the voters for one whole calendar or election year. So you're left with a void of, in our case, close to $6 million that we don't receive any of those funds. $4 million from the taxpayers, and then the $2 million through equalization funds from the state. So how would, the dilemma is, how do you pay for those things that you want to still keep? We would consider all options, and some of those would be a readjustment of what we have available to us that's flexible enough money to be able to continue to support those in the time of a double levy failure. We have a savings account, okay? And savings accounts are at times used when emergencies happen. And so you would have to allocate a portion of your savings account to get you through those difficult times. And a combination of reduction or elimination of certain things that are identified within the levy. You bring all those three kind of things together, and there would be some level of still levy identified things. I just don't know it to the degree. I can only base it on not having gone through that, but having peers in my position go through it at their school district. Very seldom for that year is everything eliminated. They find some way to patch it together. For athletics specifically, they may reduce the number of teams that is available. So instead of having a varsity, a JV, a C team and a freshman team. Maybe there's not a C team and a freshman team. Kind of sad. Maybe the elimination I've seen, the elimination of middle school type of athletics completely for that year. Those are difficult as well. The elimination of travel is a huge cost. The reduction of the number of contests is another way to reduce cost. There's all kinds of ways to reduce cost, but they do have an impact on students. You're lessening the amount of opportunity that they would have. School districts make it, but they make it, it doesn't quite look like what they had prior to when the levy had passed. Right now, I believe the Centralia School District is going through the effects of a double levy failure. I think Kennewick double levy failure, and they're seeing some pretty significant impacts to what they can offer to students. And they are obviously putting those levies back to the patrons. No, I thank you. I think you'd be surprised that sometimes we feel the same way, especially when we're in the legislature, meeting with legislators and sharing with them what goes on within our general communities and what the people of the community want compared to what comes out through legislation. I understand. Anything else? Program is titled Running Start. Okay, the program allows students who are juniors and seniors to go through a process in order to be either a full-time student at YVCC or a partial time student at YVCC. They take a assessment, which is basic assessment to see if they have a kind of a knowledge base to be able to be successful or anticipate being successful in college-based courses. So most students who take the assessment do qualify, and then that is determined by them and their parents on, do they want to be full-time, do they want to be half-time? And they actually go to YVCC for either their entire day or a portion of their day. The courses that they complete at YVCC are courses that can also meet graduation requirements within our school district. So at the very end, we have students who, after 2 years of taking courses at YVCC, have an AA degree, and at the same time they're getting their AA degree, they also get their high school diploma. We also have students who get their high school diploma, and then now they have a certain number of credits for college that they've already amassed while they were in high school. So the funding, if you want to talk about the funding for that, it really depends on the percentage of time the student is at our high school and the amount of time they're at, say in this case, YVCC. State does. Correct. Nothing to do with local. The parents and the students who decide that they have some cost associated with, obviously, the ability to get there and back, maybe some fees and costs, but the actual tuition is all taken care of by the state. We recently, in most school districts, that is one pathway for students to take advantage of Running Start and start their post-high school education at the community college. We've also know of students who would rather stay in the high school. And so because of that, we've formed agreements with Eastern, with the University of Washington, and with Central Washington University. For the courses, some of the courses that are offered in the high school, the students get high school credit for, and they also get college credit for. So it's like running start within the high school. Now, there is some, a certain number of credits are covered for the students, and then if they want to expand past a certain number, then that becomes a parental decision to pay a very reduced tuition compared to what they would pay if they were going actually to that. Yeah.
Very,
Yeah, the Unleashed program, yeah.
I don't know how it survived.
Virtually, kids met virtually and wrote virtually, and then would submit it to the person that is, I think, part of the Yakima Herald, who coordinates all those activities. And we're very fortunate. We've got, I've had a large number of students over the year participate in that program here, and I've one now, Natalie Keller. Three.
Board reps.
Yeah, and then Natalie Keller is like, I think she may be the editor of that. So. Other questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, this is what we want. We want people to show up and be able to field questions. We actually, some people think, I don't like that. We love doing this.
We do.
This is really the best part of our job, to be able to do that. Hope you got some information that was beneficial to you. Again, if you want more, or if you know of people that want specific information, don't hesitate to direct them to us. We meet with people individually, small group, large group. We have another forum coming up here soon. Encourage them to show there, or you can direct them to the website, and there's plenty of information as well there. I'll pass that
Thank
on
you.
to them. Have a board meeting tomorrow night or Thursday night. I'll make sure I let them know. Yeah, we do. Each of them are meant to try to get a different group of people who their schedules may not allow them to come to one in the evening. So we did one in the morning and one at a time. You're welcome to all three.
And this one is recorded. We're recording this right now, and it will be posted to the website and probably be pushed out on social media.
Very similar, yeah. The questions will be different, but the same type of presentation, yes.
But come back again and you can enjoy lunch. Take a roll on your way out for breakfast. Thanks again, everybody. Wayne, it's nice to see you. I saw Julia at high school a while back. Congrats.